A very good morning to all the listeners and watchers of IndianTelevision.com. It's been a real pleasure to bring out this podcast series, which is going to be talking to all the tech gurus and folks who are helping simplify the entire advertising technology or the ad tech. They're offering a lot of ad tech solutions and they're making life easier for brands to so that they can get a better return on the investment, a better bang for their buck. And today I have a fabulous personality with me, Dheeraj Gupta. He's the founder and CTO, if I'm correct, of mFilterIT, which is supposed to be preventing ad fraud. I'll hand you over to Dheeraj to talk a little bit about himself and about the company that he heads.
Thank you so much, Anil, for the introduction. I've been in this space since 2015. We're completing 10 years this year. Prior to that, I was in Nokia Networks, completely unconnected with the Adtech world, doing something as mundane as rolling out 4G networks in the country. But in 2015, we decided to move into the space, set up mFilterIT, and since then, almost 10 years down, and excited to be part of this conversation.
Fantastic. So, what made you set this up? I mean, because you were setting up 4G networks, and that's as distant as chalk is from cheese.
Oh no, absolutely. And in fact, I think that was actually one of the reasons for our success, but I'll cover that later. Basically, the discussion started where we were actually in 2014, we saw that telcos, mobile networks actually were in a very interesting proposition, right? All the digital traffic in India, mobile networks, mobile data forms about 95% of all traffic. All digital engagements actually go through the telco network, right? And telcos actually had a very strong position to understand, interrupt, change, cannibalize, modify, analyze the whole digital pipe of everything which we do. I mean, a lot of people don't realize this, but every website you access, every app you use, your telco can actually understand that, read that, know what you're doing. So it's actually a place where you can get a huge amount of information about audiences, about people's likes, preferences. And we saw that in 2014, telcos were actually starting to take those steps. And this Venn diagram of digital marketing and digital ecosystem with the telco ecosystem was actually starting to overlap. And that's when we thought that maybe there's an opportunity to do something in this space. Originally, when we actually started in figuring out how telcos can actually monetize or earn more as a separate revenue stream from this overlap. So we were actually originally trying to help advertisers in monetizing this space. But I think when we started in, there was a lot of regulations which we didn't anticipate. There were a lot of pressure on telcos to stay away from the digital pipe and under the open network ecosystem requirements. And because of that, then we realized that maybe we need to pivot. And during this time is when we pivoted into this role, right? So a year down the line. But that's how we converted from a pure telecom network professionals to digital marketing experts.
So, you keep on saying we without naming the V.
So me and my partner Amit Rillan, both of us were in Nokia Networks. Both of us were doing the task of rolling out 4G networks. Both of us used to stay in Noida, commute to Gurgaon every day, spend 2 hours going and 2 hours coming in those days. And those 4 hours is what we ended up spending brainstorming on all of this. Ditched our jobs in 2015 in Nokia and then started this.
Fantastic. And bootstrapped, or did you have somebody behind you putting money in when you were setting this up?
When we got set up, we got funded right at the beginning on the idea itself. And that actually took care of some of our initial needs. But since then, we've not needed any more funding. We've been profitable, we've been growing. And due to that, we've not taken any other Series A, Series B, or any other rounds till yet.
So you just seed funded. That's it.
Seed funded, yes.
And are the investors happy?
Oh, very happy. They've got a huge multiple. I don't think they can still calculate the IRR. It's in triple or quadruple digits. So I think they're very happy.
But how do they monetize then? I mean, because if you're not looking at going for Series A, Series B, I mean, unless you're giving them dividends every year.
We are profitable. We're growing. We're profitable. So I think that's not an issue.
Okay. So, but there is a future where you're looking at unlocking value.
Of course, of course. If we get the right partner, we get the right investment. I think this is something which can definitely be a possibility. And because and we keep getting interest from others on a regular basis. I think because we're not desperate, we're not we're not loss making. So we are trying to be picky in choosing who we can actually partner with and who actually is bringing more than just money. Money is not the issue right now. If
Mhm.
someone can bring in more global capability, more expertise, and more access to clients, I think that's a bigger requirement for us. That's how we've been trying to be more selective in who we end up working with.
Tell us a bit about mFilterIT. If you can throw some color on how big is the organization in terms of people, how is it divided, how does it function, and how do you get your clients? Throw some color on that, please.
Sure. So very briefly, we are about 250 odd employees right now. Most of our headcount is based out of Noida and Gurgaon. We have two offices, one on the Golf Course Road, one on Sector 125 in Noida. And that's like the 90% of the workforce. We have a strong delivery center, development center in Bangalore. And then we have salespeople spread over the world, right? So we have some people in Dubai, we have some people in Jakarta, Japan, and we've just started US now. So that's how we are physically structured. We when we started in 2015. We started from the performance side, right? So we started looking at performance marketing, and we found a lot of loopholes, fraud issues. And performance marketing at that time was where you paid on an actual activity, right? Like a purchase or an install or a registration, and clients were like, Dheeraj, I'm actually getting someone to buy, right? How can you say this is fraudulent, right? So, I mean, you understand, in a brand marketer, someone saw the ad or did not see an ad, there's no linkage to a performance, or there's no other data point. But in performance, you actually have a user who's put in his phone number or an email address, right? So how can you say that is fraudulent? And unfortunately, there was a lot of fraud on the performance marketing side. At one point, we were identifying 50, 60, 70, 90% invalid traffic for a lot of campaigns, right? It was a new area. Performance marketing, fraud on performance marketing was unheard of. We were actually the pioneers in this space. We set this up. We were lucky to be partnering with a lot of large marquee brands. So clients like Amazon's, Flipkart's, Mintra's, and to begin with, actually, got us onboarded, and we are actually helping them in saving a large amount of what they were actually spending, which they earlier thought was clean. Then somewhere about 2017, we started moving more towards the mid funnel. So we started looking at click based campaigns, search based campaigns, lead generation campaigns, more mid funnel, and then in the last 2 or 3 years, we've actually moved to the upper funnel itself, the top funnel campaigns, right? So where we are focusing on brand campaigns. So mFilterIT now, basically, a large part of what we do is about doing a full funnel campaign analysis, from an upper funnel, mid funnel, lower funnel. It doesn't matter, what kind of publishers you're using, what kind of payout models you're using, CPMs or CPCs or CPI or CPS or CPL, or any CPX. I call it CPX. It doesn't matter. We should be able to analyze the full funnel and help you in cross optimizing. So this is a big part of what we do, and what a lot of people know us for. But additionally, then, as part of this journey, and we're a tech organization, and we thought, we keep trying to build more products. So we rolled out something called an e-commerce analytics suite, where we're actually able to analyze e-commerce platforms, understand pricing, availability, discounting, how are your products selling compared to your competition on an Amazon, Flipkart, Swiggy, Zeptos, etc., etc. And we that's part of our mScannet portfolio, which is an e-commerce analytics engine. And we have large clients who've been using us in this space. And the third unit, so this is the second business unit, which is e-commerce analytics, and the third business unit is basically brand infringement and brand monitoring. A lot of consumers came in and said, Dheeraj, there's people putting in fake customer care numbers, fake websites, fake apps, floating around for me. You have these job scams, leadership scams. People will make, a CHRO profile, a CEO profile on LinkedIn, saying, this XYZ is hiring freshers. They get a lot of people applying, and it's a scam. We actually identify those and we take them down from the digital ecosystem. We are one of the largest providers of this service to almost all the top private sector banks who face this heavily in the country. We're working very closely with regulatory bodies. We're closing very actively with fintech. So that's part of a brand infringement and brand monitoring portfolio. So dominantly three business units: ad fraud, brand safety portfolio, the e-commerce portfolio, and the brand monitoring portfolio. And each of these units is what comprises us. So if you look at our website, you'll see a spread of all of these elements, and all of these are tech which we built out of India by ourselves.
Now, coming back again to something which you were talking about, let's look at a small, medium enterprise who doesn't understand a word about top end, top funnel, middle funnel, low funnel. He doesn't understand this. Can you simplify it for them?
Like, we've all seen AI. We've all seen what bots can do, right? We use bots on a daily basis now, and we really feel very excited about it, as to how bots have simplified our lives, right? Anything from an Alexa to a chat GPT trying to, get information on from a website. So we know what AI can do and what bots can do. Now, just think that if those same bots actually start also looking at your ads, which you're paying for, right? Then what happens? So there is right now a huge amount of bots which are continuously automating tasks on the internet. A lot of, if you go to any of the digital security companies, they'll actually quote numbers as bots are actually more than 50-60% of traffic on the internet. And take a moment to just think about this. That means that on the internet, there are more bots and machines than human traffic on the internet, right? The machines have taken over.
I'm scared.
Okay.
It's okay.
And it's so bots are actually being used for a lot of things. Like, so for example, there are good bots like the Google search engine bot, right? We like this bot. It comes to on a website, it crawls a website and helps us in better SEO on the Google search, right? But it's a bot nonetheless. It's not a human, right? On a normal website, a bot, just for a small or medium enterprise, a bot which you don't want, or which is just coming in, can contribute about 40-50% of your traffic, right? Unfortunately, if suppose, now just convert that, if I'm a publisher, I'm not a advertiser, it's not, I'm a publisher, then the same 40-50% is coming on my website as well, right? Now, if as a publisher I start showing ads to that 50% of the traffic, what happens, right? Now, as a publisher, I earn money, right? Because every time the ad is seen by the bot, I actually can claim, look, I showed so many impressions, and I get paid from the advertiser for it. But imagine the advertiser's situation, right? That his ads are being seen by a bot, which is obviously not going to buy anything from it. So the problem is that there is a huge amount of bot traffic which is out there. Bots are not just looking at ads, they're actually looking, they're clicking. If you see the whole Google search engine, it's a good bot, remember again, right? It's a polite bot. You can welcome it or you can block it, but it's still a bot. It actually comes on your website, it analyzes, but it also clicks through links, and as a spider goes into more links, right? So it actually has the capability to click through and move forward, right? Which means that bots can actually just see your ads, they can click on it, they can actually fill up leads as well, right? And before people say, no, my lead form is protected with a CAPTCHA or with a OTP verification, bots can bypass those as well. We all know what bots can do in the good way, but they can all do this in the bad way. So if you are, for example, a medium enterprise, suppose you get 100 leads, suppose you're into lead generation business, right? There's already a fair chance that about 40-50% of leads which you get, actual leads, forget about impressions, forget about clicks, I'm talking about actual leads in your database, would be junk leads. And you're already dealing with that, right? Right now you say, oh, it's part of the whole thing. I'm out of 100 leads, I'm getting 50 good, 50 junk leads. I have to live with it. But that's just the problem, right? That if 50% up to the lead level, where people actually came to your website, filled up a form, a phone number, an email address, and submitted, right? Then imagine what is the percentage at a click level or an impression level, which is far, far more easier, right? It's much easier to see an ad rather than fill up a lead. In fact, here is a conundrum which a lot of people suddenly get surprised with. If you're running a lead gen, for example, that same 50% junk leads, you'll find most of them saying not interested. Okay, if you call them up, they'll say not interested. We've all received calls where someone said, "Hey, you applied for a credit card," and you say, "No, no, I did not get lost." Right now, imagine that suppose a user fills up a lead, and in 5 minutes you call him up, right, and he says not interested. Now, what happened in that 5 minutes that this person went from being so super enthusiastic about you that he gave his phone number, he gave his email ID, right? And you called him up in 5 minutes and he says not interested. Okay, something. What happened, right? The basically what happened was that lead was actually punched in. This is called lead punching, where a bot will say, Anil, suppose your phone number is available. As a bot, it will take your number and fill up, say, a credit card lead for you, right? So, say an HDFC Bank, I fill up a lead for Anil Wanvari, right? And when you will get a call from HDFC call center and say, "Hey, Anil, did you fill up a lead?" And you say, "Not interested," or get lost, right? And that's happened to all of us. So, simplifying it, bots are actually burning up your campaigns. They are coming on your website. They're clicking. They're filling up leads. They're engaging with your content, right? Which means that any metric which you are using for optimizing your campaigns, engagement rates, retention rates, lead form, conversion, click through, they all are need to be considered deeper because they may not be the true picture. In fact, I should say, I would not use the word may, they will not be the true picture. And they need to be course corrected, otherwise your campaign is going in a wrong direction. So you're burning a lot of money, and for a small medium enterprise who doesn't have a lot of money to and burn, and who's looking for efficiency, this in itself can be a huge bottleneck for their growth.
You're basically living in what do you call it? Apocalypse, botcalypse. Are we living
Oh,
on that?
absolutely. The whole LLM wars have made the situation much, much worse. So right now, you have your Geminis, you have your Grok from Twitter, you have your Chat GPTs, you have your, the Facebook Meta LLM models. All of them, how do they get trained? They're all training on the internet, on actual text which is present, the content which is present, right? How do you get that content? By crawling. So, in the last 6 months, because of LLM wars, the amount of crawlers have quadrupled massively, right? Because everyone is trying to just get the freshest content which is coming on the internet to train their LLM model so that it can become more superior in responses, right? And in many of those, you don't actually have an option to even block them or prevent them. They will come on your website whether you like it or not. They will eat your website's capacity, right? But now just replace that same thing with a publisher. If they're coming on a publisher's website, publisher might say, "Hey, I'm going to show ads," right? And as an advertiser, if your ads are one of those ads which are being seen by a chat GPT bot, how is it helping you? That's, I think, the crux of what you need to think about.
Wow, you're getting me worried now. Really worried. I'm a publisher myself.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's a big issue. Just to give you a sense of it, about 60% of traffic is now known to be bot traffic. About 25% is good bots. Good bots are polite bots. They will declare that I'm a bot, and you have some options to block them, right? And then the remaining 35% is bad bots, which are not polite. They will come in whether you want them or not. They will bypass your checks and they will come on your website because they want to. Okay. So good bots and bad bots, 20-25% of good bots, remaining bad bots. That's the current situation.
So what's the way around this for, let's say, one, a publisher? Secondly, for an advertiser?
So, in fact, before I get into what is the solve for a publisher, let me just talk about a publisher's problem or a conundrum, right? A publisher typically would use something like a Google Ad Manager or some ad server, a mediation engine from which you are actually getting ads, right? Most of them have some checks on bots also, right? And you're probably getting penalized every day from all the ads you're getting. So imagine you're a publisher. You showed your ads to 100 people. You're supposed to earn, let's say, $100. Suddenly you're going to get a penalty saying 20% of it was junk. I'm only going to pay you $80, and that's it, right? Take it or leave it, right? And almost every publisher I talk to, this is already happening with them, right? They're getting deductions to the tune of 20-25%. More would actually result in you getting just blacklisted from that mediation layer, right? But at 20-25%, you don't know why, this is happening. Why am I getting penalized, right? So what are publishers? A lot of publishers are now working with us to understand whether this is a bot or a human. If it is a bot, then you actually don't show ads to that through that user. You don't route it to your, say, the Google Ad Managers or your ad servers or your mediation programmatic layers, because you will get penalized there, right? Because it's a bot. And human traffic, which is obviously good traffic, that can be given to more premium advertisers, better traffic sources where you can actually earn much more value because that's good traffic. So you can actually now segregate your traffic between good traffic and bad traffic. Good traffic can go towards your premium customers, your areas where you actually want to run your get more value, and the junk traffic should ideally be blocked out, and you should not be serving ads, or at max maybe serve your in-house ads on that traffic.
Okay. And where do you come in to help a publisher?
The moment someone visits your page, basically you put in a tag on the website, and we will tell you good, bad, ugly, basis which you decide. So the moment the page opens, we'll tell you this is a bot or not, and basis that you can actually choose how you want to play with what kind of ads you want to serve.
Is it IP driven or is it individual driven?
It's individual driven. IP addresses no longer work. Just to give you a sense, Anil, if you look at Apple Relay, right, all of your traffic actually routes through an Apple Relay server, which means that the IP address is not your own IP address, but actually an Apple Relay server. If you have a Google Chrome and you have, say, a data saver enabled, which is in many cases by default, again, you're actually not seeing the correct IP address. You're seeing a Google server IP address, right? And so on and so forth. So IP addresses no longer help, especially in India, where IP addresses are actually completely reused because we are very mobile data heavy. In the Western world, which is more on fixed broadband, IP addresses actually do end up staying with the customer for a month maybe. But in India, because you're on mobile data most of the time, and that's how Indian data consumption is. Within every few hours, your IP address will change, which means that IP address is not a very good metric. You have to look at all the other parameters.
Fantastic. So, how much awareness is there amongst large advertisers? Because they're all going for, when you go to an agency, they're all going in for volumes. They don't care really. They're drawing up campaigns which are talking about let's say we'll serve 300 million within the next 2 months. And they don't care.
Yeah. No, absolutely. The
The
problem is,
advertising agencies don't care, the digital agencies.
so I'll talk about two kinds of advertisers I've seen, right? One is an advertiser who says, Dheeraj, I'm just going with trusted large platforms, and I will not go to anyone else, which means that I'm safe, right? Now, this is one class of advertisers whose only protection is because I'm working with large partners, then I should be okay, right? Then there's a second class of advertisers who is saying, I just want the cheapest inventory which is there, and the cheapest is the best, because I just want to go out there in the open, and I don't care about anything else, right? There's a third one which is performance driven, which is saying that if I'm getting performance, I don't care where I'm getting from, as long as my performance is coming out. Now, the performance one might actually work for performance marketers who are having lower funnel data to analyze, but most brand marketers don't have lower funnel information to optimize towards, right? So it doesn't work. And performance marketing has its own fraud on how performance can be tweaked. Just because you're getting performance doesn't mean it is good. It's actually fairly possible it is bad. But let's focus on the brand side, right? On the brand side, so if you're working with large platforms, it doesn't mean that you are safe, right? Definitely, they have a lot of tech which is actually reducing the impact. I would not deny that. But does it mean that you are fully safe and you still don't, you're probably not facing a 50-60% issue, but you're facing a 10-20-30% issue for sure. EY and Fiki report actually came out last year. It has a whole section on ad fraud. The amount of traffic which we are seeing as invalid as part of the report is about 20-25% on large programmatic campaigns, you on popular platforms, right? If you're on search or you're on data network, on audience networks, etc., you're probably at about 15-18% invalid traffic, right? And so just because you're working with a large platform doesn't mean you're safe. You actually need to have your own measurements in place to keep protected. The second class of advertisers who just want the cheapest inventory, they should realize that, there was this saying which I someone told me, right? If you throw peanuts, you're only going to get
Good
monkeys,
monkey. Yeah.
right? So if you're going to say I need the cheapest inventory, then you're basically already saying that, I'm just going to get junk traffic, and that's the problem with open auction programmatic campaigns, right? So in open auction programmatic campaigns, you get a lot of this so-called remnant inventory. Advertisers love it because at 8-10 rupees CPM, you're suddenly getting traffic. But a lot of it is actually junk. A lot means a lot. Anywhere about 50-60% of it at 8-10 rupees CPM is probably going to be junk traffic, which is not going to be seen by humans. In the Western world, in the last 2 years, this has actually now become a very, very serious topic. India is still catching up. I'll just refer to one report. ANA is an American body of advertisers. It's a advertiser body, not a publisher body or an ad tech body. They took their own 21 advertisers, contributed to the data, and they got it analyzed by Deloitte. And I think the number they came out was that 35% of that traffic was fraudulent, right, or junk, right? 35%. And we're talking about some of the biggest clients with the biggest agencies and the biggest DSPs or platforms on which they were running their campaigns, right? So this was the ANA report, and I think Indian advertisers now are also realizing it, and using tools like ours to solve for it.
Understand. So the tool from the advertiser side is, what tool does the advertiser use, and how does an SME access this, or is it meant for large advertisers only?
No, it's agnostic, large, small, medium. We have all advertisers, size of advertisers with us. Definitely for a smaller advertiser, what happens is that they already have small teams, and they're trying to, focus on just managing and running their basic campaigns. They might not be aware so much, so we see a lack of awareness on small enterprises. But medium and large are definitely, are becoming more and more active, and jumping on the bandwagon.
No, I understand. So, but the real numbers are going to come from the small guys. India is full of small enterprises, and that's where what they call the unorganized sector, which is getting organized now, the Make in India kind of a.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and maybe programs like these, Anil, will definitely help in creating more awareness. I completely agree. It's like it's like an antivirus requirement, right? You put an antivirus on your machine not because you have a virus on your machine, but because you want to prevent viruses from coming in, right? And you need that protection for your campaigns as well. Otherwise, you're probably going to end up burning a lot of money. I would actually think a lot of startups, if you look at their balance sheets, right? 40, 50, 60% of their money goes into marketing, right? Because they're trying to grow, pump in money and grow their product. And unfortunately, if that 50, 60% of the money which they're spending, which they have short supply of, it's a startup, right? If 20, 30% of that being wasted, there are a lot of brilliant ideas and startups who are actually getting bankrupt because of this problem. And we if this problem was not there, we might have many more successful companies out there who right now have got shut down because of failed marketing efforts, probably because of bots.
Yeah. Internally, how are you using AI yourself to stay ahead of AI, the AI bots?
So you need to analyze billions of impressions, events, transactions every hour, right? And it's not possible to look at it manually. Fraudsters just try and keep doing more and more innovation to try and stay ahead of the curve, which means that you need a lot of AI to be able to identify patterns, clusters, behavior of bots, right? And all of that then helps you in improving your technology every hour, every day. It's a cat and mouse game. You have to keep being there to improve, because if you sleep for a day, you're already obsolete, right? That's how quickly bots are becoming smarter and smarter, and that's how we need to become smarter and smarter as well, to be able to catch them.
What's it like? Tell me, the AI side in your company.
We have a full data science team, I think about a 10-member team, and they've been trying to build in these patterns. algorithms which plug in into our data pipelines. So they look at scatter diagrams, they look at concentrations, they look at weird behavior which doesn't make sense, which are outliers. They identify those, cross section those, look at how that's converting into performance. If it's not, it goes back into our engine and starts getting blocked off, right? We do a lot of work on brand safety as well. Brand safety is about making sure that your content is on safe placements. Again, you have to analyze the content of the placements, objects, content, understand it's good, bad. India is a very complicated country, by the way, in the sense that every 100 kilometers, your region, religion changes, food changes, language changes, right? So trying to do brand safety in an India context is extremely challenging, and from an AI perspective, because you need to understand all these regional languages so that you can incorporate them into a brand safety filter. Imagine in an India environment, imagine a meat delivery ad, a meat ad running on a Hanuman Chalisa, right? Very dangerous proposition. Or imagine a sexual products ad running on a religious video, right? That context in itself is extremely dangerous. And understanding, the Indian context, because religion in itself is okay, right? There's nothing unsafe about religion, but the context of religion with say a meat delivery or a sexual products or a toilet cleaner, for example, is very bad connotations, right? So those need to be AI driven, those contexts need to be understood, and that is what then goes into a lot of what we do as AI.
Would you consider us to be an ad tech force in the world, or are we not really? I mean, I wonder whether we've lost the race.
To be really honest, a lot of hardcore Indian Adtech products, are far and in between only, right? There are not too many hardcore Adtech products. A lot of work which we end up doing ends up being trading or just white labeling a lot of the global tech. And to be honest, we keep we and I think the Indian ecosystem needs to kind of become more active in this space. I'll give you a context, right? So there is a US government body called MRC, right, which basically measures and rolls out some guidelines for people to monitor and work with, right? It's a US standard for US, right? Because it is set up by the US government, right? Now, so a lot of tools in the US will of course need the MRC certification, right? But in India, you don't need that because it's a US standard. It's like asking FSAI or an ISI certificate from people in US, right? It's an India standard. It's needed in India. But for example, we faced a lot of challenges in our detractors saying you're not MRC certified, right? And to tell them that you don't need to be MRC certified, it's an American standard, is something which doesn't have that understanding in the country, right? So we face those challenges where an Indian ad tech is being forced to adhere to US standards, which are applicable for US, just because we are not comfortable that an Indian ad tech can actually do this work in India, right? And that obviously impacts, how the ad tech grows in this country. And I think the ecosystem needs to kind of support ad tech in India rather than put in blockers. And that's my stand on this.
But are you asking for a body like the MRC to be set up in India?
Possibly. Why not? I mean, standards are good, right? There's no problem. The problem is that standards which are applicable should be applicable, right? I mean, a standard which is not even applicable, it doesn't make sense to, put them into a region where they're not needed.
That's just a handbook. It's not a standards body.
No, it's not a standards body. It's a handbook. I think, but it's in the right direction. Let's put it this way, right? And that actually then brings more standardization for everyone.
Yeah, but you didn't really answer my question on whether we are pioneering advertising tech, or are we following?
I think in some areas we are definitely pioneering, but in a lot of areas we are following. Right? Let's put it this way. So I see a lot of interesting work happening in Gen AI on digital marketing. Right? A lot of people talked about it in AdTech, and I see definitely a lot of work happening in that space in India as a homegrown tech. But apart from that, I think in most other places, I think we seem to be reusing or white labeling American tech or an Israeli tech, to be honest. And I think that's something which we should try and resolve for.
How do we resolve it? Do you have answers, or
Uh,
you?
I think there needs to be more support from everyone for local homegrown tool providers like ourselves, right? But actually, I think a lot of advertisers and agencies, have started, using us. We've got a lot of love from them, a lot of strong support from them because we are solving an India problem within India technology for an India client, and I think that's something which is synergizing well for us. But that if this becomes broader as part of the ecosystem, I think that will definitely help all ad techs in the country.
I get it. Now, what about international clients? Are they respecting your tech?
Oh, definitely. So we've now been able to go, as I said, we have offices in Dubai. We are now set up in US, Jakarta, Japan, and we've tried getting clients there. They've realized that what they were earlier getting from the Western world is not cutting ice. So I'll be honest with you, right? So most of our competitors are in this all is well space, right? I call it the three idiots all is well space. Okay, what is all is well space, right? Said, like in three idiots, Amir Khan said, right? Just report bare minimum 0.5%, 1% of the problems, right? The advertiser is happy that all is well with my campaign. The agency is happy. The publisher is 1-2% okay. I'll do a make good, right? So everyone is happy. No one is solving anything, and people are happily paying for the all is well comfort which comes in, right? So a lot of advertisers globally now are realizing that this is not the reality. The reality is 50-60% bots on the website, right? And if I have 50-60% bots on the website, how can I my fraud on my campaign be 1% or 0.5%, right? That dichotomy is something which is now catching attention, and more international advertisers are also signing up, and realizing this heavily. So I think Elon Musk did a great service in this space. If you remember during the Twitter wars, what happened was Twitter used to say, "Oh, I have 1-2% bot accounts," right? And Twitter said, sorry, Elon Musk said, "No, no, it is 20%, right, and more." I don't know if you saw this in the court in US when that Elon versus Twitter battle was happening. This was asked that what is the methodology of Twitter to say 1-2%? They would take 200 accounts. That's it. 200 accounts out of millions, 200, 300 millions they have. A sample of 200 accounts, and then from 200 accounts, they decided that there is only two accounts or three accounts which were bought, and that's how they came to that 2%, 1% kind of a number, which is ridiculous, right? Account Elon then came back and said, no, no, it's 20%. We're going to solve it, right? That's the issue which I think we're trying to solve for as well. Not on Twitter, of course, but on every platform.
Yeah, but now you have a lot of e-com and QCom coming up. How are you solving it over there, or that's an internal thing that they're measuring internally?
I think a lot of that e-commerce side is right now acting or structured as a walled garden. I think that's something which slowly will mature. Monitoring those is a problem right now for everyone, not just us. But I think slowly that will probably go in the right direction. And transparency is something which is becoming more important for advertisers. We have advertisers who are saying, allow us to monitor, otherwise we're not putting our dollars on this publisher. And because of that, publishers are now accepting more and more monitoring to be able to give that confidence to clients that everything is sorted. And the way I look at it, it's like a segregation of good publishers and bad publishers, right? Good publishers who have nothing to hide are more than happy for monitoring, more than happy to prove that okay, everything is nice, and then charge a premium for that. And bad publishers who obviously want to evade are actually trying to hide and under legalities and privacies and so on and so forth. And that segregation is slowly happening in the advertiser's mind as well.
So, is it a good thing that Geo Hotstar has opened up its entire ad tech stack to Nielsen's monitoring?
Absolutely, every monitoring is good. It's in
You
the right
follow the
direction.
Geo Hotstar thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So absolutely. So all monitoring is always welcome.
We've talked a lot about fraud. We talk about bots. We talk about AI. We've talked about how you're internally using AI. Now, going forward, with the kind of investments being poured into AI, with the kind of investments being, digital is more and more capturing the advertising dollar. Whether it's quick commerce, whether it's e-com, whether it's social media sites, which are, reels, etc., going forward are going to be getting a lot more traction. Facebook, all of these are going to get more traction. So, apart from, of course, publisher websites, so what do you see happening to the world at large as far as communicating to the consumer is concerned on digital? Because the new age consumer is on mobile, the Gen Zs and the Gen, what is the next gen? I've forgotten what's the next.
I lost track. I lost track.
Yeah, they all on handsets.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen to the world of advertising and spends, and how do you see the playbook playing out?
My sense is that they're going to be the Western world is moving towards curated inventory, right? That's the buzzword right now. What that means is that trying to blast on every publisher or every website or every platform is a fool's errand. It's too complicated. There is so much chaos and fraud and brand safety and so on and so forth that the world is trying to move towards more curated content. If you see in the Western world in US, I think most of the investments right now are moving towards curated content analysis or curated content lists, which are plugging into DSPs and saying, okay, I'll make sure that I run only on these kind of placements or these kind of content or these kind or good healthy websites, right? Which, to be honest, in some way I see in the right direction, right? Because there's so much clutter and junk out there, right? Which hardly anyone goes to also, right? I mean, you would, apart from say the top 20, 30, 50 websites or apps, how many more would you have seen in the last 1 year also, right? Hardly any, right? Which is saying that the vast majority of websites which are where advertisers are otherwise chasing, human traffic is minuscule or not going, right? Most of it is concentrated in the premium websites. So I think the direction in which this is going to go in one sense is curated content, because advertisers are saying, okay, to hell with so much of chaos, let me focus on top 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 if you want to go aggressive, of placements, apps, which I know are good and, relevant to what I want to do. That's one. But the problem with this approach is that it actually undermines the whole open internet concept, right? Basically, what we are saying then is that those 20, 30,000 list, which someone decided is a good list, is where all the marketing dollars would go, and everyone would starve to death, right? Because advertising dollars are important for publishers, right? So the curated direction is might be good for advertisers in one sense, but it's bad for the overall ecosystem because you're actually killing everyone, and starving the advertising dollars from going towards small genuine website owners who are actually have good content and have, say, a loyal following, right? And that whole model of advertising led revenue is probably going to then collapse, right? So my sense is that between these two opposite poles, I think something in between will come in. I don't think it will ever be that it will only be these 5,000 websites and nothing else, right? There will always be a scope for broader ones. And I hope that is the case because the open internet needs a protection and it needs to be nurtured rather than, blocked out. So I think somewhere in between is the world going to be in the next few years.
Let's say I'm a youngster who's starting out in the world of ad tech. What advice would you give me?
In Adtech, as a consumer of Adtech, or as
No, as,
a
as somebody who wants to enter the field of ad tech.
okay. I would look at, I would recommend someone to, talk to advertisers. I think my personal opinion is when we talk to advertisers and we hear their pain problems, solving them has given us the best ROI, right? And what we've realized is that it sounds mundane, but talking to advertisers and hearing from them what their problems are and fixing those definitely gets you a much better product.
Okay, and let's look at the influencer side. That's the one which is really exploding, or though people say it's slowing down, I don't believe that it's slowing down.
I have a very, you know, different view on influencers. I think a lot of what's happening on social media influencers is bots, unfortunately. If you've seen what's happening, I think a lot of what's happening on social media is bot followers, bot likes, fake likes. While I understand there is value, I'm not doubting it. My question, I think, is that how much is the value which is coming in is not something which is properly being measured. A lot of what is visible in terms of followers and likes is probably not a reality. Just
Okay, if there's one thing which you could want changed in the Adtech and MarTech ecosystem, what would that be? Apart from getting accepted as an Indian, tech solution.
I think this industry needs a lot of government support. I don't see the government, involved into this. It's a strong area to be in. It's an overlap of digital and technology, right? We are strong in technology, but you know, uh, digital tech in between is something in the advertising space we've completely, ignored. My sense is that you can probably count 10 ad tech providers hardcore product development engines, right, which are running out of India and not white labeling or just building something in house. And because it's a growing industry and a growing domain to be in, I think it's important for the government to
What kind of
actually look
support?
how to nurture it.
What kind of nurturing? What kind of support?
Oh, so for example, the government has a huge media budget, right? The DAVP portfolio is a huge portfolio. It can change a lot, just with a directional nudge, right? DAVP is needs to maybe consider a lot of ad tech from India. The government is in India is right now focusing on made in India. I think DAVP also needs to see what is made in India and consider that. And just that nudge can actually make or break a lot of ad tech in the country without any extra cost and probably much better value for the government spends.
Great. Now, we are in the first silver jubilee of the third millennium, which is 2025. My company is 25 years old. Uh, in terms of anything, one you said is the government coming in. Anything else which you would like to see change, which will probably impact the industry over the next 25 years? You and I will be far too old by then.
Um, I think we need to definitely look at one thing which is fake news and fake content, right? As marketeers or as ad tech professionals, we are definitely encouraging AI into content development, creative development, but we are probably taking a risk that people will fundamentally doubt any and all content because most of it would be AI, right? So that inherent that I saw this photo or I saw this video of someone saying this will no longer just be enough, right? Because we are right now ourselves putting in doubt, and it's early days yet, but imagine 5 years down the line, where if you see a video, your default will be that, oh, it's a fake video, right? That's going to be a default filter in front of you. And if what we hear and what we see as humans is something we cannot rely on, then how would digital marketing be able to communicate trust right ahead is, I think, a huge challenge in my opinion. And because if people don't trust a communication to be genuine, from not because it is not genuine, but because we are force fed with so much of AI junk that our default reaction is that it is not genuine, then how will advertisers communicate becomes a huge topic. And I think it's an evolving field, but 20 years down the line, I think we'll be all trying to figure out what to trust and not to trust, and maybe there ends up being trust brokers or trust engines which will say, okay, this is trustworthy and this is everything else outside is not. Maybe there is a curated list of trusted content which comes in. I don't
So
know how.
would you be playing a role in that, your company? Or that's too early days now?
It's probably early days, but we're definitely exploring something in that direction, right? And I see the world moving, needing something like that. Someone who can actually say that yes, this is trustworthy, this is not. I think the digital ecosystems will start needing this more and more.
Fantastic. Any last words? I think we've spoken about an hour, about 40, 50 minutes. I don't know if you've traveled, covered ground or not. It depends on whether you feel it's been worth your while. But any last words which I may have missed with my meandering?
I think I have some messages, right? Don't don't just trust what you are seeing on a dashboard. Don't trust what you are seeing because some publisher said I saw so many impressions, so many clicks, and they were all good. Don't rely that just because in the platform I configured a targeting of India, it would have gone to India. If I selected a targeting of CTV, it did actually go to CTV. Or if I told the platform that okay, don't run on porn sites, does it actually mean it did not run on porn sites, right? Question that all of these are just configurations, but it doesn't matter whether they were correctly executed or not. I think advertisers need to ask many, many more questions to publishers, agencies and publishers need to be able to be empowered to be able to answer them. That's my message to all listeners. Don't assume or don't just blindly trust, but let the data show that to you, right? That's I think what I remember that proverb, we only trust God and data, right? I think that needs to be important for advertisers because my sense is if you assume what is shown to you on the dashboard as to be sufficient, then you're probably not doing the right job in terms of optimizing correctly. That would be my final words to all listeners. Doubt everything, question everything, and only trust data and not just what the dashboard shows you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And I hope the listeners who are tuned in are following Dheeraj's advice and look forward to having many more conversations with you. And once again, this is Anil Wanvari saying thank you very much. Goodbye, good morning, good evening, good night, or whatever time it is and whatever time zone you are in. Thank you very much.